Welcome back, Sovereign Sister, to the Sovereign Sisterhood Movement Podcast as we continue our journey of the exploration and the understanding and application of what is the 10 energetic bodies of Kundalini Yoga for generational healing, healing 7 generations before and after you, and more importantly, accepting the Christ consciousness within you. And this week, we're going into the eighth energetic body, which is absolutely one of the most important ones. It is one of my favorite ones as well because it really brings together not just spiritual protection, but also spiritual empowerment and sovereignty in a way that perhaps you've never understood it. In fact, what I'm referring to is the aura, which is your electromagnetic field, and we're going to look at it scientifically. We're going to look at it through the lens of quantum physics. We're going to look at it through the lens of Christ consciousness, and especially through the lens and perspective of Kundalini yoga. Because once you understand what the aura is, and you also understand how to strengthen it, that is when you break the pattern of generational trauma. And not just that, you break the ability for systemic trauma like genocide, war, and spiritual warfare to impact you or anyone in your lineage. And this is why this week's conversation is crucial. So we are gathering again on this beautiful evening or morning, whenever you are listening to this. Welcome. Grab yourself some coffee. Maybe you'd like some tea. Grab yourself anything that will allow you to ground yourself in this next few moments that we're going to be here together, because this very much so will be one of the most important podcast episodes you have ever listened to. So welcome back to the Sovereign Sisterhood Movement Podcast. I'm Veronica Vagan, trauma-informed Kundalini yoga therapist and co-founder with God and all of you of the Sovereign Sisterhood Movement and Sanctuary, a virtual online sanctuary for the soul, for women like you, first-time generational cycle breakers who are here not just to heal themselves, heal 7 generations before and after them, but more importantly, to accept the Christ consciousness within us. We simply cannot continue to dim our light, and we have to learn to build nervous system capacity, rewire the brain so that we stop self-sabotaging our own birthright. So welcome and thank you all so much for being here. So if you've been with us, every week we've discussed each of these 10 energetic bodies. So really what you're learning through the practice of Kundalini yoga and Christ consciousness is everything that they should have taught you since you were a young child about energy, about who you truly are. And just because it didn't happen for us as children, it is never ever too late for you to really understand yourself, learn how to work with your most advanced technology, which is you, your nervous system, your brain. And today, as we dive deep into the eighth body, you're going to see why this is even more important than ever. So this week we're going to look at the aura, which again science calls the biofield, and we're going to look at it through these perspectives of Kundalini yoga and Christ consciousness. And by the end of this episode, you're going to know not just what your aura is, you're also going to know what weakens it, what strengthens it. In fact, I'm going to be sharing with you a meditation today that is very powerful, that only needs to be practiced for 3 minutes to help you not only strengthen your aura, but to purify it and to allow your inner child to heal so that you are spiritually, energetically, and physically protected. Because a large part of what the aura does is it actually protects us and works like our immune system. So let's get right into it because we do have quite a few things to go into. So let's look at the aura from first a Kundalini yoga perspective. And I want to remind you all that Kundalini yoga is not New Age jambalaya. Kundalini yoga is the ancient science of energy. It's been around for more than 5,000 years before religion. Religions came from it. So we're not talking about anything New Age, anything that is not or we cannot prove through science also or through also metaphysics. We're talking about the aura in a way that you understand how powerful you actually are, because the aura is called the circumvent force. So I want you to think about it as a current of light that moves around your whole body in an oval shape. Now we're going to go into the science of this and to the quantum physics, but let's look at the Kundalini Yoga perspective because once you understand it energetically, you actually, I'm pretty sure, can become aware of it within your own biofield, within your own energetic field. Literally, the aura, what it does is it's a protective shield. Your aura is actually fed and it consists of your vibration. So, thoughts, feelings, emotions, that's what creates your auric field. Vibration means your signal. So, if you've been with us, we've talked about the brain and we talked about the nervous system in these 10 energetic body series. Your nervous system is charged by energy, by electricity, which is produced by thoughts, feelings, and emotions, which create a vibration, a signal that then the brain sends out into the lattice, into the quantum field. Basically, you're always connected to this lattice. You are the lattice. Your fascia is basically collagen that is comprised of water, but it's not your typical water. This is like fluids that are found in the womb that hold memory and they hold memory of the traumatic experiences you've been through. And then the fascia, because it's piezoelectric, it sends signals to the body, which is why we have to release the memories that the body and the fascia store. We have to rehydrate the fascia with meditation. And we're going to talk about that a little bit later. But the reason why I'm bringing this up right now is because you are the lattice. That means that your signals that your aura, your brain is sending out are connecting to this quantum field that are then printing your reality. So the vibration is the thoughts, feelings, and emotions that are coming out of the brain that are creating what is known as your aura, your electromagnetic field. And your signal, basically your vibration, what you think, what you say, what you create, how you feel, is what creates this reality. And this is very important because understanding that your own vibration feeds the collective circumvent force is understanding the process of creation. And we have to also understand that if our aura is weak, because we've experienced generational trauma patterns, we've lived under chronic stress, maybe there was systemic trauma. Look at what's happening in the world right now. It's a literal ritual of spiritual warfare with systemic trauma being infiltrated into the consciousness of human beings. Our nervous systems were never adapted to absorb the amount of trauma that we're seeing being revealed right now. So if your nervous systems are absorbing all of this, they are getting charged up by this very dark awareness of how some individuals have led their lives in this realm. And that's causing perhaps a lot of anxiety and different emotions within you because your nervous system is not being charged by the light, by meditation, by gratitude, by all these other emotions that we can connect to by re-educating our nervous system. If it's being charged by constant chronic stress, whether there was war, genocide, or what we're seeing right now in the world, or you grew up in a home where there was a lot of fighting, infidelity, maybe mom was depressed, maybe there was a lot of grief, somebody transitioning in your lineage that people have not been able to heal from, that makes your aura very weak because the thoughts, feelings, and emotions you're having are then weakening it, and it literally is creating holes in your auric field that are allowing other energies to impact it and to basically occupy your consciousness. That's why this aura is very, very important to keep it nice and healthy. And when we look at the science and the quantum physics, you're going to see that they've been studying it for a long time. There's technology to read your aura. Many people can actually read auras. They can understand the color and understand what each of these colors are symbolizing based on the emotions that the person is having. And the thing is if they can read your aura, there was this study done where I don't know what university it was, but basically they developed the technology to scan it and they could tell already whether the person was going to have an accident or they were going to break their leg, because these things appear in your auric field before they actually physically are materialized. Remember, it's a brain signal that is then sending it out to the quantum field. The more you're having this thought and this brain signal, many of us are having this unconsciousness, it exists already in the aura as a future event that's going to occur. And this is also very dangerous too, because if they have this technology to do that, many people have verified that the phone is doing that to your brain and to your auric field. So why do you think that you get ads for things that you didn't even talk about out loud? You literally were thinking about them and now they show up. So that can be very dangerous, because if you're constantly afraid of an illness or something happening to you, or because you haven't healed your trauma, you're obsessed with infidelity because that's what you experienced or your family experienced, or you're obsessed with like crime shows for some reason, then they are reading that aura, and then they're putting more information around that subject matter so that you become literally addicted. That's why the phones are so addicting, because what they're triggering is your exact pain points, and that increases. You get a cortisol kick, you get an adrenaline hit. That's a stress response, and your body becomes addicted to that. So that's why people are so addicted to their phones, because even though that what they're watching is not necessarily growing their consciousness, but it's giving them a hormonal kick. So then if it's giving them a hormonal kick, they become addicted to it, so they keep going back and they keep going back unconsciously. And the aura then becomes even more weakened. Think about it. If you're already in anxiety and stress, that's because your nervous system needs basically to process all of this information. There's such a thing as known as containment and coherence with your nervous system. So basically in life, in order for you to materialize anything in this world, you have to have containment down. So if your nervous system is charged up by energy, which is your thoughts, feelings, and emotions, coherence means the signal is coherent. Your thoughts, feelings, emotions, and beliefs are all aligned as one. That's then sending a signal. You're collapsing time and you're materializing whatever it is that you desire, or it comes from your heart, right? Most people, thoughts, feelings, actions, beliefs, one of those is out of alignment. They usually don't believe, they're not taking the action, or the thoughts are not there because of trauma, chronic stress. So the signal is very weak. So it cannot materialize because the nervous system is stuck in fight and flight from years and generations of chronic stress, abuse, and trauma, systemic trauma, or genocide. So if the nervous system is not charged up, or if it's charged up by that chronic stress, then what is happening is that your coherence is very weak. That your coherence is your aura, thoughts, feelings, emotions, actions, and beliefs. So if your coherence is very weak, your containment is very weak. What is your containment? Your containment is the ability to sustain what you believe, even if you physically cannot see it. And that's called faith. And it's a chemical process. We're working on that this month inside the Sovereign Sisterhood Sanctuary with specific meditations and kriyas that work specifically on the positive mind, which is nervous system and brain related. So, containment means you have a leaky aura. That means that because of years of trauma, of stress, of chronic stress, of complex post-traumatic stress, call it what you will, that now there's holes in your auric field. So that is what it's is self-doubt. That is what is self-sabotage. That is what is fear. That is what is shame. You basically cannot materialize the things you want because you can't contain it. You can't contain the belief. Why can't you contain the belief? It's not because you're weak. It's because you have to train the mind, the nervous system, and the brain. So the aura, if you're feeling all the time fear and shame, and you're always talking about victimhood and survival, that's a very weak aura. So you can't contain your deepest desires to materialize. But if you feed your field, your auric field, with meditation, with mantra, there's actually three ways of three paths that Yogananda, the self-realized master, who basically developed the or not developed but taught us about the process of becoming the Christ consciousness, which is all of our birthright. We're going to get into that in the second part of this podcast episode. But there's three ways for you to actually develop your auric field. Devotion, which is meditation. Devotion, which is scripture. Maybe you're reading spiritual scripture, right? Wisdom, which is going beyond the ego. I mean, all three aspects that I'm going to mention today: devotion, wisdom, and the third one is service. Your ego is not involved. It's for the higher good of all. All of those things develop a strong auric field. In fact, that is the path for you to awaken the Christ consciousness within you and heal yourself in 7 generations before and after you and heal the world. So it's either done through devotion, through your meditation practice, through devotion to a spiritual practice, whatever that looks like for you. Wisdom, which is a byproduct of devotion for sure, but many of us apply wisdom throughout our days, every single day. Like, for example, when your nervous system is regulated, someone says something to you that you don't like, because it's not attack. I'm going to talk about that a little bit later because we have to talk about the inner child in order for us to understand the aura. But if somebody says something to you that's unconscious and you instead of react, you create space and move away, or you literally put yourself in that person's shoes and you understand that they're doing things out of their level of pain and not because of who you are. It doesn't mean you're a doormat and they step all over you. We're going to talk about forgiveness here a little bit later. But what I'm saying is that you respond differently. Then you are removing the ego and you are literally expanding your consciousness. So those three, and then there's service. Maybe you're someone I was just sharing with my community, like my son. One of my sons, both of them are very, very connected to devotion, wisdom, and service. But one of my sons is actually very devoted to, or very committed to service, and that's something that comes naturally to him. Like him taking his grandparents out to eat, to the doctor, bringing them things. Like he just does things out of his heart, out of not of a place of I have to, or I feel sorry for them, or God's gonna be looking at me like I'm a better person. Like literally that is his practice and that is his life. So some of you might be really good at that. All of those things really support the strengthening of the auric field, and again, beyond that, accepting the Christ consciousness within it. So we want to feed our auric field, our electromagnetic field, with meditation, with devotion, with service, with wisdom. Why? Because, like I was mentioning before, generational trauma, systemic trauma that we're seeing right now, we're seeing wars and genocides, all of that trains the nervous system to live on guard, fight and flight. And it's going to change your vibration, your signal. You might notice it like feeling drained around certain people, or you're constantly overthinking, or you cannot rest, or you scan everyone's face and their tone, or your body braces and you don't even know why. Even when you're safe, you could be on vacation. In Kundalini language, what that means is that the aura is very weak, that the shield is very thin, that this oval light around you is very dim. And so what we understand is this the circumvent force becomes weak because of trauma, chronic stress, and then the person feels trapped by negative forces, literally, and they lose clarity. Because if your aura is completely like has holes in it, you're gonna walk into a room and if they've been fighting in there, instead of you transforming that energy, you're gonna absorb it. And then you feel trapped because now you've absorbed someone else's energy, and it could be this negative dark energy, this literally essence in homes where there are trauma that has happened. It gets imprinted in a home, and many times there are spiritual essences that then become attached. So what we're talking about today is protection in a way that doesn't make you feel afraid, because you're also protecting yourself from you. That's the most from your untrained mind, not your true self, right? Beyond, if you rebuild your aura and worked from within, you would never be afraid of anything out here. So we're not training you to about fear, or we're not making you more afraid. We're not being gullible, and we're breaking down things the way they are energetically. And you should get excited about these things because there's solutions for all of this. Now, in order for us to ground ourselves more into these teachings, I want to share with you the perspective scientifically of what the aura is so that you understand that this is something that has been studied for a long time. This is ancient, but they've been studying it for a long time and they haven't made us aware of these things because it is a form of sovereignty for you to strengthen and protect and use these meditations to rebuild your auric field. But scientifically, going back to electricity and energy, your entire body uses electricity. Your nervous system is literally amped up and charged up by electricity. Your heart beats with electrical signals that can be measured. Your brain works with electrical signals. In physics, we know that when electricity moves, it's going to create a magnetic field. So the body has a field too. There's movement, there's flow. And science can measure the heart's electrical and magnetic activity. They got the technology to do that. Science can also measure the brain's magnetic activity. And here's what matters most for our work and what we're talking about here. Your nervous system changes your signal. So when you're scared, your breath, what happens? It gets shallow. You're not even breathing. What happens with your heart? The rhythm, sporadic, right? So anxiety is you can't hold the charge. And now the energy in the nervous system, and the energy is moving it all over. Why? Because what happens next is common. It's a pattern that starts in the womb many times because these generational patterns are passed in the womb as well. If your mom was already living under chronic stress and survival, you being in the womb, she was already wiring your nervous system. But what happens is your brain goes into scanning mode. That's why your heart rhythm starts to change. It's real messy, right? Because your brain is hypervigilant because of the trauma you went through. And is constantly waiting for the other shoe to scan. That's why you got to rewire it. Now, the difference is when you are present, your breath changes, your heart rhythm natural, it comes back into this natural rhythm, and your thinking gets clearer. I mean, and that research shows that this is what coherence is, what I just explained to you before. When your heart rhythm and your nervous system patterns become more ordered and steady, well, then you feel more regulated. That's what a regulated nervous system means. So it's not that you'll never have emotions again, it's just that you can contain them. Our problem and why we project and why we are so angry and then we project the anger. Anger is not a bad thing. Emotions are not bad or good. They're signals, not of who you are, but what you're feeling at the moment in time and space. But most of us, especially in the English language, because it's so corrupt in the way they say, I am angry or I am mad, it's like you are the emotion and you're not. The awareness of the emotion is the regulating moment. You don't have to worry about the how or stopping the emotion. I know it's uncomfortable, but the way you develop awareness to regulate is you got to change your nervous system. That's how you're going to change your coherence, which is the signal. And that's how you're going to change the containment because you're going to change the heart rhythm. You're going to change the signals the brain is sending out. So when we're talking about aura uh, rebuilding, we're not just only doing energy. What we're doing is we're retraining the nervous system to retrain your breathing, to retrain your heart rhythm, to retrain the nervous system from fight, flight to, oh my gosh, I'm actually safe right now. And then that changes the quality of the signal you send out from the brain, from the auric field, biofield. And in Kundalini Yoga, we use words like current. Current, it's a frequency. Whatever you even say is a frequency. It's a current, it's a sound current. And guess what? It remains in the atmosphere and cycles forever until somebody changes the frequency. So in Kundalini Yoga, we do not work in linear time. Linear time is is here, right? And past and future. When you practice Kundalini yoga, you're going into the quantum field, the lattice that Jacobo Greenberg was talking about. You're always in the lattice, by the way, but you're accessing it consciously. So there is no linear time. And if everything is imprinted into the quantum field that you've ever said, that you've ever experienced, and so have your ancestors, that means that all of your lineage continues to go down the same streets and bridges that they've always gone through. So somebody like you, as a first-time cycle breaker, you start your meditation practice, you work with this auric field meditation that I'm going to share with you in a moment. What you're doing is you're accessing the book of life that we talked about last week with the arc line. You're accessing the lattice. You are the lattice, but now you're accessing it and you're introducing new breathing with the Kundalini yoga meditations. You're introducing new sound. Why? Mantra. So then that is building new bridges. It's changing the frequency in the quantum field. That's how you heal seven generations before and after you. If you missed the arc line episode last week, go check it out so you can understand that better. It's right here on the podcast. Oh, and by the way, thank you all so much for sharing the podcast. And thank you so much for hitting that like button and commenting below it. It helps so, so, so much. And I constantly forget to remind you all to do that. But thank you so much for taking the moment right now to share the podcast, to share this episode, and to hit that like button and drop a comment below. So in essence, when you're practicing Kundalini yoga, you're changing the energetic field. You're changing your auric field, which, by the way, your aura is constantly in communication and talking to other auric fields. So when you do that, the new generations don't have to go through the same streets in the quantum field, their consciousness. They got new bridges. And guess what? Past generations, they exist in the quantum. The physical body, you retire it, right? The soul goes on to its next incarnation. But the expression and essence of who that person was in the physical realm, there are still memories tied to that from their ancestors that are still here living. They still exist as essence. And guess what? You can build these bridges so that they are healed too. It's not that they have emotions in the afterlife, but they have new bridges that they can express themselves through. So when we're talking about things like fear, you're thinking about weakening your auric field that creates the same streets. And in fear, false evidence appearing real. You're like, easier said than done. How could I just get rid of fear? Well, it's stuck in your body. You don't have to talk about it. In fact, talk therapy can be one of the biggest, like, fraudulent things in the world because it was created by fraud. I call him Freud. I call him fraud. Freud. And he was like literally, think of him like as an influencer that just got pushed. He was protecting a lot of people that were abusing children. And he kept pushing talk therapy because they knew that if all you did was talk about your pain as a child, that you would continue to re-identify it and that there would be no healing. And that is why you could talk about it all you want and nothing's going to change. You have to use frequency, you have to use sound, you have to use breathing, you have to use mantra to get to the root of where this pattern exists because it remains in the atmosphere and it cycles back to you because it was being created through your lineage. So fear, very different than prayer. And a lot of people don't know how to pray. They pray like beggars. Like if for some reason God is like this genie and they have to like beg for the things that they want. That's the God of religion. God is all love. God is always saying yes, by the way. You don't have to convince God of what your heart desires. First of all, God knows your heart. So anytime you pray, pray in conviction of it already being done. And not only that, pray to be willing to see things through the eyes of God, through the eyes of love, through the eyes of Christ, because that's the most powerful prayer you can ever, ever pray. Because seeing through the eyes of Christ, you'll never make decisions from the place of the ego, which won't weaken your auric field. So when you are praying in conviction at already done, you're feeding the auric field. And all of that happens chemically, going back to faith. If your nervous system is hijacked with fight and flight because of chronic stress and trauma as a child and as adult even, then you're not going to have faith because your nervous system is going to be addicted to adrenaline cortisol, which is impossible for you to even be present. It's impossible for you to even have emotions of gratitude. So that's why we got to start at the root. And that is why also Kundalini Yoga allows you to vibrate the name of God. Ultimately, Kundalini Yoga is the union with God. And Kundalini Yoga doesn't heal you, Kundalini Yoga reveals you as the Christ, as the highest expression of God. God wanting to experience herself through you. You're not God, but you are an expression of God. You are a light from God. All of us are. And we're all connected because we all come from the same source. But when you chant Kundalini Yoga, you are now vibrating the name of God. These mantras are so sacred. It's a science. It's not just affirmations. And if you're chanting mantra, that's going to change your auric field. It's going to change the color. Why? Because it's going to change your thoughts, your feelings, and emotions. Why? Because it's going to change your nervous system and your brain. So this is why devotion, service, and wisdom change the signal. And this matters because the aura is not just what you feel, it's also what you repeat out loud in your mind. Forever it stays in the frequency. So we got to change that. Now, why is it so difficult also for us? Yes, generational trauma, but at a deeper level, why? Why do we struggle so much with our auric field? Well, we have to discuss the inner child in order for us to understand this. And connecting the aura to the inner child is such an empowering way to get to the root cause because your inner child is a younger part of you that has learned how to survive. If your family system carried a lot of fear, if there was the addiction, violence, abuse, silence, betrayal, emotional instability, maybe they went through a war or a genocide, then what does your inner child learn? To stay on guard. Your inner child is an aspect of you that many of us have actually learned to abandon. And then what happens when you get super angry or upset because something happened in the world? People don't act their age. They go back to the age where that traumatic experience happened. And a lot of us can't remember one traumatic experience because it was a lifetime. It was an entire childhood and adulthood because parents didn't heal of chronic stress, of dysfunction. So we've stayed on guard for long periods, many times generation from generation. And that rule or that pattern becomes a constant stress signal. And remember, I told you these stress signals become pre-wired in the nervous system in the womb. So many of us come from a lineage where the inner child needs a lot of healing because these patterns actually have begun in the womb. And we know that when stress runs the lineage and the system, then your vibration is going to change, your breath is going to change, your body's going to be ready for the next shoe to drop, which is very serious because if your psoas, which is the muscle that contracts unconsciously since you were a little child, because that's where we hold the trauma, that's going to affect your breathing, it's going to affect your spine, it's going to affect your organs. Then comes physical disease, right? But we need to change the vibration because when we change the vibration, your heart is going to change, your mind. That's what we call taking out the trash meditation of the mind. Your mind is not your enemy, but you got to train your mind because no one taught us how to do that, right? So in Kundalini yoga language, when your vibration changes, the circumvent force changes. So if your vibration is fear, anger, it's going to be weak. And this is connected also to your immune system. And think about it. This is why they say long periods of time where you are in constant fear and anger, people get sick, right? Well, why is that? Well, because your auric field, your biofield, is so weak that it's absorbing the toxins from everyone and anything. So inner child healing is not just talking about the past. You look what happens when you keep talking. It's changing the signal in the present. Now, if you want to talk about it, that's up to you, right? But just know that you are re-identifying and you need to work with these things by releasing them through the body. That's how we heal our inner child. Now, I want to share with you all this really powerful meditation. It's a short Kriya. A Kriya in Kundalini Yoga is a recipe or a meditation that we do that gives a specific result. And this one that I'm going to share with you is known as the Ego Eradicator. And it builds strength and power in the electromagnetic field because it increases vital energy. It sharpens our mental focus. When you practice what is known as the ego eradicator, you're going to progressively purify your mind of negative self-talk, taking out the garbage, right? So what is that going to do? It's going to strengthen your auric field. Why? It's going to invite light and clarity into your heart. So the result is that you're going to reveal your true essence, not the false identities you've been creating through trauma. I did a whole podcast episode with the soul body on false identities. If you want to go check it out, go back to the podcast. Oh, and thank you so much for taking the time to hit that like button, to subscribe, to share, to drop a heart below in the comments if this is resonating. Now, getting back to the ego eradicator. There's certain people that shouldn't be practicing this. First of all, I'm going to give you the benefits and how to do it. But if you are on your moon cycle, there's this doctor, Dr. Vasant Lad, who said that this is the best type of breathing meditation for especially depression because it awakens the Kundalini. It's gonna massage the Kundalini energy lives at the fourth vertebrae of your spine. It is fifth state of matter plasma. It's what's gonna hydrate your fascia. So the Kundalini is going to also massage the ovaries, the prostate glands. It's going to make it really beneficial for those with fibroids and improving fertility and impotence. Excellent if you have respiratory problems, including asthma. This is what Dr. Vasant Lad said. He's an Ayurveda doctor. But there's also certain people that shouldn't be practicing it because it moves so powerfully with the breath and also with the lower triangle that if you're on your moon cycle, just skip it because we're going to use breath of fire, which I'm going to show you right now. If you're pregnant, don't practice ego eradicator. Also, people with really uncontrolled high blood pressure, skip this one. There's other ways to strengthen the aura too. But with this one, just skip this one completely because you don't want to create more activation, especially if you're working alone and you don't have a mentor or somebody can assist you with it. I don't know, for some reason, Dr. Vassan Lad also said that if you have glaucoma, not to practice this meditation. Also, if you've had recent abdominal surgeries, so anything that's working with the lower triangle, because it's very, very powerful. Now, let me give you the benefits because you shouldn't be afraid, right? Obviously, if you fall under one of those, then just skip over that and work with something else within the podcast series. Now, this one, what it's going to do with this meditation, it's going to open your heart very, very quickly. And that's very powerful because most of us, if we've had grief in our families, it gets stuck in the lung meridians. And this meditation expands the lung capacity, releasing that stored trauma so that the heart can expand as well. The other thing is that it's going to brighten and purify your auric field. It's going to balance your pranic body, which we're going to talk about eventually here within our systems, the pranic body. It's going to help you also expand lung capacity because it's inviting you into these like deep presence into your body and mind. It doesn't mean you're not going to have emotions or thoughts. I'm sure you will, but you're still being invited to hold the pose. And that is retraining the nervous system. And it also is going to soothe your soul from chronic stress because it brings the brain into the state of like alertness. Excuse me. It's going to set us free from this negative self-talk, which what does that do? It weakens the aura. So it does work very powerfully with retraining you in how to breathe because it's strengthening the three diaphragms. You have three of them. They're like trampolines. And most of us, again, are not breathing above the belly button. So our diaphragms are not even being exercised. So it's a very powerful meditation for your nervous system to increase your resistance to stress and to really activate the deepest regions of your lungs that aren't used for typical breathing. So restoration, balance to your sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous system, that's how you strengthen your auric field. That's how through this meditation, you're also increasing your endurance, your vitality to have the containment. Action, beliefs, thoughts, emotions, coherence, but then you need the containment, right? And the cool thing about this meditation too, or Kriya, is that it's going to energize your blood with so much oxygen, reducing the cortisol in the blood. That helps you gain control over your impulses and the thoughts and feelings and emotions you're having. And especially with the increase of the oxygen to the brain, that's a powerful way for you to focus and for you to not be like squirrel, squirrel, squirrel with all the different thoughts and emotions that come. Because, like I said, 95% of the day, most people are operating on a pattern. And the last thing that I want you to know about this Kriya is that it's going to boost your immune system. Again, your auric field is connected to your immune system because if you have leakage in the field, you're going to absorb other people's energy and even toxins. So this is going to help you prevent illness and disease. So let me show you how to actually practice this meditation or Kriya. You can call it a meditation or Kriya. So you can sit on a chair or you can also sit in easy pose, like I'm sitting even here on this chair, whatever feels more comfortable for you. And then with this meditation, we're going to lift both arms to 60 degrees. But before we do that, we're going to bring in the fingers into the moon mounds here of the hand. So it looks like this. And then you're going to keep your thumb sticking up. And then you're going to lift the arms to 60 degrees, like you're making a very wide V. So 90 degrees is kind of like you're straight up. 60 degrees is like kind of pointing out to the sides of the room. Curl those hands into the pads of the palms. The thumbs are pointing straight up. Your neck is long. Bring your chin slightly in, welcoming you to also close your eyes for this, if it feels safe for you. Now, here's how the breath of fire works. You're going to inhale and exhale through the nose, equal and quick. And at the same time, you're going to pump your belly. It's almost like a puppy that's panting. Try it by sticking your tongue out first. Now close your mouth. You have to feel that breath come from the belly. The navel pulls in and on the exhale, and then navel relaxes on the inhale. It's like a it's this constant pump. And really you should start with 1 to 3 minutes so it doesn't feel very invasive. If you get dizzy, slow down and just switch to long deep breathing by staying quiet. Simply sitting in your meditation pose, or you can keep your hands up, but just breathe in and out through your nose. Try to go for a minute to begin. And the most important thing is keeping it for 40 days. Especially, this is so good if you're going to go into a meeting because it's going to charge you up with energy. But also, the most important thing is it's going to protect that auric field so you could have presence in your thoughts, feelings, and emotion. So, with the breath, because we're using breath of fire when working with the navel, that's why we don't want to practice this meditation if we're on our moon cycle or if we're pregnant. So once you're done with your 3 minutes, just take a deep inhale and bring your hands all the way up with your fingers pointing up. Just stretch here and hold the breath in as you tighten up the pelvic floor. And then exhale. And you do this 2 more times. And you exhale. And then last time. And you exhale. And then when you're complete, you can actually literally sweep the aura all the way down, bringing your hands to your lap. And I suggest that you also stay with this stillness for just about 1 minute at least after you're done with the meditation. There's actually scientific studies that show that those that actually sit in stillness after they're done with the meditation, that's the part of integration where the mind absorbs the pattern or uh, shifts from that old pattern at a much faster rate. So after you're done with meditation, just simply sitting in quietness and observing and feeling all those emotions. You might become very emotional with this meditation, and that's okay because you're moving energy that has been stuck for a very, very long time. And the inner child concept of this really, there's so much of our childhood that we don't remember, but it becomes your personality. And that's where these emotions get stuck in the body, where you're practicing this Kriya, and all of a sudden you'll start crying, or you might have memories come up, or you might feel rage or anger. That has nothing to do with you doing it right or wrong. There is never a right or wrong meditation. All of them are amazing. Whether you cried, got angry, couldn't sit still, that's all part of the re-education of your nervous system. And this is very important because of the fact that we're dealing with the inner child. And the inner child, I want to take us deeper into understanding this spiritually. Because if you can understand this spiritually from the Christ consciousness lens, then you won't judge yourself, and you also will feel excited about rebuilding your electromagnetic field and auric field instead of seeing it as a task, as a chore, or as something that requires you to change who you are. It's really about accepting who you are. And we can't accept ourselves when our nervous systems are in these cycles of deep fight and flight instead of presence. So, in order for us to understand this, I want to shift into the Christ consciousness perspective of the auric field. And I want to talk about the inner child from this Christ consciousness perspective. One of the things that Yogananda said, Yogananda is the great master, self-realized master who walked this planet in the from 1930, I believe he transitioned in the 1950s. And he basically wrote some amazing books. Some of you might know him as the autobiography of a yogi, Steve Jobs. A lot of different really famous people studied his work because absolutely we all can use these teachings for darkness or light. Just remember that if you're using them for darkness, because of it's a form of creation, that you will receive that karma back too. But there was a lot of people that studied his work, and he wrote Autobiography of Yogi. He also wrote The Second Coming of Christ, The Resurrection of the Christ Within You. And he had a deep, intimate experience with Jesus Christ, with Jeshua. I actually attend the temples that he created, the self-realization temples on Sunday. And it's so beautiful because you walk in and you see Krishna, Christ, Yogananda, and then his three other gurus, his teachers. And he wrote these books as a process, as a scientific process of practicing Kriya Yoga. Kundalini Yoga is a form of Kriya Yoga as well, that then it becomes a process of you awakening the Christ consciousness within you. And this is not woo woo. This is literally what Jesus Christ talked about. He said, "You will go do bigger things than I have done." And Krishna, same thing. Krishna means Christ. Christ. They had the same stories. Guru Nanak, he is the yogi who went underwater after 3 days, recited the Gurumukhi. That's where we use all of the mantras, the Kundalini Yoga mantras. And he wasn't here to create religions, just like Jesus Christ was not here to create religions or Krishna. In fact, Guru Nanak was here to abolish them. And he understood that it was our birthright to awaken our Kundalini energy and to, beyond healing, reveal ourselves as the second coming of Christ within us, whether you call it the second coming of Christ, Christ consciousness, or you might call it the awakening of the truth within me. And one of the things that Yogananda said about the auric field, before we talk a little bit more about the inner child, is that one who comes near a holy person will be benefited. This is baptism by spiritual magnetism. The saint's thoughts and magnetic aura cast out a vibratory glow that changes the consciousness and brain cells of those who come within range. All who visit or live on the same grounds where a master lives or has lived will automatically be transformed if they are in tune. So, what does this mean? When you change your auric field because you've cleaned out the mind, the nervous system, and the brain, your auric field serves as the same way that the saints, meaning somebody comes around you and they heal. That I don't know if you have had ancestors like that or if you've met people like that, but I mean, for me, I didn't meet her in person, but my mom told me about my grandma, my great grandma. She's my dad's grandma. Her name was Chole. And Chole, my mom said you would go around her and she just emanated and projected this peace that she couldn't even describe in words. And it was just kind of like you would just go around her and you would just feel instantly better. My grandma, my great grandmother Chole, had a very strong auric field. She may have developed it through devotion, wisdom, or service. We all can do that too. The saints are not better than you. In fact, most of the saints actually have some crazy ass dark stories. And then they brought all that darkness to the light and became saints. That's you. So please don't think that just because things have happened in your life that you can't accept the Christ consciousness in you or that you can't be of the caliber of the great masters you are. That's why Jesus Christ said, "You will go do bigger things than I have ever done." And so Yogananda confirmed that. And he said also that the metaphysical way to Christ consciousness is through meditation and holding on to the after effects of meditation, meaning your whole life is a meditation. You're walking, that's a meditation because it's not just what happens on the mat, it's what how you are relating to the world. That we become enlightened and we accept the Christ consciousness in relationship with others. Jesus Christ did not go hang out in the churches. He was in the bars, he was in the streets, he was hanging out with everyone. So what Yogananda said is your present consciousness is limited by the body. Why did he say that? Because your body keeps score of trauma. So there's a scientific process of you releasing that and accepting the Christ consciousness within you. It's called yoga. And he said that. But when you expand it by deep meditation, that's what Kundalini yoga is, you'll become aware of the feelings of all people. Now you're reading other people's auras. You will be able to know all things, and marvelous realizations will come to you. If you did not have trauma stuck in your body, you could walk on water just the way Jesus Christ did. And we're not doing this, we can have all these amazing powers that everybody can then idolize and worship us. It's your birthright. It's your birthright to uncoil your potential. That's what Kundalini Yoga does. Uncoils the potential, the fourth vertebrae, the Kundalini. And when we look at the teachings of Jesus Christ, even when we look at them from like a Course in Miracles perspective, it's not that they even use the word aura, but there's always this reference to the light, right? To radiance. Jesus Christ says that your true self is not fear, that your true self is light. You are the light. But also, something about our inner childhood needs to be discussed that can be very triggering, but that can also be very liberating because we know through the work that we are the light, and deep in our hearts, we understand that. But the childhood, our inner child, when our inner child has not been healed and accepted, then we truly do not see ourselves as a light, and we absolutely corrupt the auric field. So, what Jesus Christ was saying in A Course in Miracles is that we are already children in our own mind. You know how babies they scream and rage when we take away something dangerous? In this sense, we're still babies. Think about it. When people get angry, I don't know, maybe this happens to you, but think of someone who has gotten angry recently or raged out. What happened? You can't even talk to them. It's like they're closed off, right? Why? Because they revert back to the age where the pain first began, where the trauma. And that's why a lot of us, we're still children. We're still babies. How many things does God want to take away from you? And then you're like, no, 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 screaming and crying. Right? This happened to me with my little niece. I had the honor because she's a walking sage. Babies and children are literal walking sages. But I had the honor of taking care of her. And me and her older sister were, she was asleep, by the way. She was taking a nap. And then she wakes up, but her older sister, her and I were playing hangman and we're writing and and then little sis comes and little sis wants the pencil. And I'm like, no, because it's gonna hurt you. And she snatched it from me, and me trying to take it away from her required a lot of convincing. I had to convince her that we were gonna go play outside, and when she wasn't looking, when we were outside, I took it away from her. We do that as adults. God's like, no, no, no. And you're like, I'm gonna keep it. I don't care if it hurts me, I'm gonna keep it. Why do we do that? Because of our nervous systems and our brain, and we haven't healed our inner child, and we keep fighting for things that keep us stuck. Generational trauma trains the mind to see danger everywhere. Your brain is literally wired for shooting off signals of what's the next shoe that's going to drop. And this is confusion. This is fantasy, mistaken for reality. A child sees a curtain and thinks it is a ghost. So who's there to protect the baby? You as a parent, right? That's God. And maybe children are seeing ghosts, and that's okay. You have to remember children's brains are developing between the ages of 0 to 7. And think of it as like this part of the brain, which is called your third eye, which is in the area of the pituitary and pineal gland. It's constantly secreting. It's like they're walking around on psychedelics, like constantly secreting DMT. So they need a parent. You can't be your child's best friend. They need guidance because they can't tell what is real from what is not. And also many of them have access to the spiritual realm. So they are seeing these things. And if you as a parent deny it or make them feel unseen or you're depressed and you can't help them with what they're seeing in the curtain, then that becomes a problem. A child can see shadows and thinks it's a monster. If mom is there, the child is going to heal. And that's the same thing with God. And that is the child's mind. When we don't put our faith in God, we are feeling alone. We are scared. We are not letting go of these things that are hurting us. And the child mind pattern is the same in adults, where silence becomes abandonment, where you're anybody whose tone shifts, now you feel like it's dangerous. You can't rest because you think that's unsafe. Can't heal because you think you're not being loyal to your lineage. Joy becomes something that you're gonna definitely not experience. So there's a way around this. The most important thing is that there's a key line in the Bible that tells you that you have to become as little children. But what does this mean? Little children recognize that they don't understand what they perceive, and so they ask what it means. They ask their parents for help. That's another cute little thing that my little niece does all the time. She's like 1.5 and she speaks so much. These little humans are now they're being born more advanced than ever. So she's only a year and a half, but whenever she needs anything, she tells me, help me, help me, help me, help me. I love her so much. And it doesn't matter what it is, right? If she needs a cup of water, if she wants to go outside, it's like, help me, help me, help me. So she is not afraid for asking for help. You as an adult, you still live in the inner child mind, but you don't ask God for help. And that's the healing move. That's what's going to change your auric field. It's not forcing peace. It's not forcing yourself to meditate. It's not even pretending that you're fine. It's by saying when you're caught in these moments of anger, of rage, I don't understand what I'm seeing. Help me, God. Or the prayer, I am willing to see this differently through your eyes, God. That's how fear dissolves. Now, going back to our nervous system and our brain. If you've lived under chronic stress for a long time, you're not going to have a very high level of awareness because you're not even in the present moment. You're constantly in the past or thinking that the future is going to be better. So when you're having these emotions, you don't say, "Help me to God," or "I want to see things differently," because you're on a spiral. You're angry and it's taking you into projection, resentment. It's taking you into this place of the inner child that you don't even know how to get yourself out of. So you're going to have to develop this. That's why devotion, service, and wisdom is important. So it's a repeated process with us. It's the studying of the second coming of Christ, the resurrection within you, spiritual studies inside the community, the Sovereign Sisterhood Sanctuary. We have daily journaling, which is part of the workbooks that we focus on every month, one energetic body with the generational healing theme. And we have our Kundalini yoga practice. We have Monday morning sadhana, full moon, new moon, equinox, solstice sadhanas, rituals. We have our Wednesday Kundalini yoga therapy classes. Monday is Kundalini yoga therapy meditation. So you have all aspects of the service, devotion, and also the wisdom in our community, the sanctuary, where you get to decide and build your own practice that basically supports your ability to not just heal your inner child, not just fortify your auric field, accept the Christ consciousness within you. That's what you're here to do as a soul. You might not do it in this lifetime, but you're gonna have to do it. You have free will in the physical, but we don't have free will with God. In the spiritual, we're always coming back home to the Christ consciousness. So again, you could delay it or you can start now. And a big part of this, of course, is forgiveness. Now, Yogananda was very clear about forgiveness. He said that if you find that your environment isn't suited to your goals, find another that will aid you. By changing to the right environment, you help to develop your magnetism and to change yourself for the better. Mix with those people who are models of what you would like to be. If you want to be saintly, mix with holy people. So basically, he was not saying that you have to be a doormat. In fact, yes, it's all about love, devotion, and wisdom. But if you keep giving love and the answer back is hate or pain or all this, then move your hands back and create that distance. But that's not gonna keep you off the basically give you the ability to then not do your own work to forgive them. Remember, we're in the quantum field. We're all united. So you will still need to do the work to release those memories so that you can forgive them. Because for not being able to forgive and resentment, it's actual a chemical addiction. Every time you hate someone, every time you're jealous of someone, every time that you wish that person something would happen to them because of what they did to you, that a chemical is released in your body, adrenaline and cortisol. And that's why we become addicted to toxic relationships. It's literally an addiction. So forgiveness, I want to remind us all, we're not saying that harm was okay. Forgiveness is truly changing the teacher, giving up your false perception that someone else sinned against you and that you are justified in resenting and punishing him. Look, if that person is still hurting other people, absolutely, you've got to follow the realm of moving through making sure that that doesn't happen, right? Whatever that looks like for you. But that person did not sin against you, and that person did not attack you. That person attacked themselves. Jesus Christ on the cross said, "Forgive them, Father, for they know not what they do." Why? Because they were not attacking him. They were acting out of their level of consciousness. And he was liberated, and he liberated us when he said, "Forgive them, Father, for they know not what they do." Because people don't attack, people act out of their level of pain. And releasing this perception automatically releases your resentment and your desire to punish them. If you have a desire to punish someone else, that's a leaky aura. And you could be using that energy to create a beautiful empire. But instead, your aura is leaking and you're absorbing everything and you're staying in the pattern. We have to remember that forgiveness lets this misperception go. And it is an alchemical process that happens in the body and the mind in the spirit. And guess what? As a result, it heals the other person too. And you're like, why would I want the other person to be healed? Well, do you want the person to continue the pattern and continue to hurt other people? So it heals the other person of guilt and it can heal the person's body, mind, and spirit. But at the same time, remember, what you're giving to others, you're giving it right back to yourself. So if you're actually forgiving and it is healing the other person, then it's going to heal you. It's going to heal your mind of guilt and fear. Because at the end of the day, at our hearts, we know we are the Christ. So even if we pretend, the sociopaths and all these people that you see out there, narcissists, even if you pretend that you don't care and that doesn't bother you, that you don't forgive this person, it absolutely does. I've had so many experiences where women come into the community or I'm working with the woman one on one and they're like, I have no one to forgive. Like, that's it. I just maybe have to forgive myself. And then we work for one day or one week, and then the next week they come and they're crying and they're like, wow, I didn't know I had all of this in me. You cannot forgive yourself if you first don't forgive the people outside of you that you haven't forgiven. Why? Because what you're giving to others, you're giving to you. So if you can't forgive them, you won't be able to forgive you. Now, you say, well, what if I just forgive me? Will I be able to forgive them? No, because we're in the polarity. So by you forgiving you, it's not going to impact that other person because the other person, you are still seeing them as separate from you. You got to come into the kingdom of heaven together as children or as one child ultimately because you are one. You come from the same explosion of light from Mother Earth. So, what forgiveness does is it heals your sense of separateness and it takes away the perception that somebody sinned against you and that you have to protect yourself. Jesus Christ knew what was going to happen. He understood it and he still walked with his head up towards it because he didn't need protection because he knew who he was and he knew who walked with him, God. And even in those moments of deep emotional, physical pain, he trusted that God would be there. So what we're talking about here, when we start to choose love as the interpreter, meaning I'm willing to see things differently, and willingness is like you listening to this podcast episode too. The how is God's work, but that's what's going to change your heart, your breath, your thoughts, feelings, emotions, and action, your signal, your presence, your aura. That's aura repair in the Christ consciousness language. Your light shining without being afraid of being attacked, but also not attacking others. One thing that Yogananda said is that hatred travels through the ethers. So there are 5 ethers. We talked about this in the soul body meditation. And I'm sorry, soul body podcast episode. If you missed it, go check it out. That's where the soul experience itself after our last breath. We choose what ether we're going to hang out in. The great masters hang out in the highest ether, and we can access these ethers through meditation. And what Yogananda said is that hatred travels through the ethers. So if someone is broadcasting hatred and you are tuned into hatred because you are tuned into that hatred because you haven't released the hatred in your body, you're gonna get it. But what if you've changed your body, mind, and spirit and nervous system and brain through Kundalini yoga meditation? Now, if you're tuned to love, it doesn't matter how many hateful vibrations are sent, Yogananda said. You're not going to get them. That's a strong auric field. You must cultivate love in your heart, for love is the magnet that draws souls to you, and it is the dagger that destroys hatred. You are love. You become a containment for love through devotion, through service, and through wisdom. And then you'll never have to worry about hatred because you're not attuned to it. It can't impact you anymore. You're attuned to it because of the trauma, not because you're a bad person, because you're the trauma, systemic genocide, all these things we see, right? That's why. But we can change that. And that's how these two paths become one. Kundalini Yoga says your vibration feeds your protective shield. Christ consciousness says Your perception of the mind decides whether you are seeing a curtain or a ghost, something that is false or real. Fear versus love. I'm not saying that ghosts are not real. I'm just saying many of us, that's not really a ghost what we're seeing. We're seeing a curtain and we need to be accurate. So the combined practice is this. When you get triggered, this is a moment of training. You could even start to like take the slow breaths and maybe remove yourself. And the awareness there is I'm willing to see this differently without projecting, without reacting, right? And gets a lot easier as you practice the ego eradicator. So if these things come up for you, don't react, remove yourself from the situation, tell yourself I'm willing to see things differently, and go right into the ego eradicator. If you're on your moon cycle or pregnant and you can't practice the ego eradicator, long, deep breathing for your aura is just as powerful. You can just sit in an easy pose or on a chair and just breathe long and deep from your nose. This is recharging the nervous system, and it's also strengthening the auric field, processing the emotions you're moving through. You might not be able to sit still, you might be moving around a lot, but instead of reacting, you're responding, which stops the pattern. So that's what you have to do. Practice, repetition, awareness is built. I'm willing to see things differently. Practice your ego eradicator. Start with 1 to 3 minutes per day. Take it to a minimum of 40 days because that's how you retrain the aura through the body. And that's how we retrain the aura through the mind as well. So, what did we discuss today? Today we talked about your eighth energetic body, which is the aura or biofield, however you want to call it. We learned what the aura is, a current like light in an oval shield around you. It's your vibration that feeds this shield. We talked about how breath and mantra changes the nervous system signal. We talked about words that are sound currents. We looked at generational trauma, systemic trauma, genocide, and war, and how that can weaken the field. We looked at Christ consciousness teachings about the child mind, learning to ask God for help again. And we even looked a little bit at forgiveness as the ability to choose love as the interpreter. So, if this episode spoke to you, comment below, drop a comment, a question maybe came up for you, something that resonated. Practice the ego eradicator and let us know in the comments how this is actually showing up for you. And of course, thank you for liking, subscribing, and sharing. Remember that all of this beautiful journey of generational healing and accepting the Christ consciousness unfolds inside of the Sovereign Sisterhood Sanctuary, our virtual sanctuary for the soul, for first-time generational cycle breakers like you who are here to heal not just themselves, but 7 generations before and after you. So if you're interested in learning more about the sanctuary, make sure you click on the link below. You'll be able to become more aware of the different membership tiers that we have available to you so that you can also begin on the journey. And also stay tuned because we are building in-person sanctuaries throughout the world. I want to say thank you to all the women who have raised their hand and have stepped up to facilitate these beautiful in-person sanctuaries, especially during a time when women of absolutely are needing to come together more than ever. So stay tuned next week for the next podcast episode where I'll be releasing more information on how you can join us in these in-person sanctuaries for your soul and join us in the generational healing movement. Again, thank you for sending you all such a big hug. Thank you for all the amazing comments you always leave. And I will see you again in the next podcast episode. Next week, we are going to be working with the subtle body, something that is so important as it relates to clearing samskaras and karma from your lineage. So I'll see you all next week. Sanda.